There we go. All right. We good to go now?
We are. What's up? What's up? What's up? Well, welcome everybody to the newest episode of Brothers Y'all Good. My name is Mike. I'm here with my brother Jason, and we got another exciting hour adventure for you tonight with some great conversation with some other brothers that are doing exactly big stuff in the world. We want to share their stories and hear a little bit about them. But before we get to that, as we start every week, Jason, brother, you good?
Man, I am good. All is well. I can't complain. It's been a long week already, and it's only Tuesday. You know what I'm saying? But I've been practicing some of my mental health tools, practicing on not allowing myself to get overwhelmed, and just remembering that I've been here for almost 55 years, and the day is gonna be fine. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be good, but all is well. Family's well. Everything is cool that way. How about you, brother? You good?
I'm amazing, man. I'm amazed every single day what God has to show me. Friday, he brought a young brother into my courtroom, young man who's studying law. He's a former MMA fighter. And God brought him with a friend to hear a little bit about what we had to share with them. He knew a little bit about the podcast. We ended up grabbing something to eat together. We've stayed in touch since then. Saturday, I got to spend the day with my son. We went to a cancer benefit showcase. We met some amazing, talented artists, singers, performers, models, actors, including a young sister that thinks that maybe she's got a theme for us for our podcast that she wants to sing for us. Sunday, I met with another brother from the Eagles organization, which is a mentorship group that I'm a part of. We chopped it up in Escondido, had a great conversation about his life, his struggles, his successes, and his future. And it's just been blessed. I'm traveling today, so I got a different background today, but I'm where I'm supposed to be, which is on the stream with you at Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific time, making it go down. So, brother, I am good. It's amazing.
I love it. You got a lot going on. I love it, man. Well, yeah, let's let these folks know what we're here for. And I can't wait to introduce our two new guests, man. Super grateful to have these two brothers here. So Brothers Y'all Good is more than just a podcast. To keep it real, it's a real talk space where Black men can come through, open up, and get honest about mental health. This show dives deep into the stuff that matters. We're talking about faith, fatherhood, fellowship, and all the ups and downs of navigating life as a Black man today. From dealing with stress, anxiety, and trauma to breaking through the stigma that's been holding us back, this podcast keeps it real with personal stories, expert advice, and practical tools to help you find peace and strength. This ain't just talk. It's about building each other up, sharing experiences, and creating a healthier, stronger community. So pull up, tune in, and let's have the conversations that heal. Together, we're breaking the silence, overcoming barriers, and helping every brother be able to say, yeah, brother, I'm good. So welcome to the 9th episode. This is good. We got two amazing guys here. I met one brother, Mr. Charleton Lightfoot Sr. You know what I'm saying?
What's up?
I met him up in Sacramento at a one-day conference, and he was one of the presenters. And I was like, I had never really seen a brother in that space before and be able to occupy the space the way that he did. So I was just intrigued. I think he asked me a question and I didn't even know he was talking to me. I was like, me? Like, man, all right. Then I was put on the spot. I said, I got to say something smart, man, because this brother's shining right now. And then, as I always do, just, we connected as brothers normally do in spaces like that when there's not a whole bunch of brothers, and we just, and it was just a natural connection, man. I got his business card. There's a little wooden coin. And the wooden coin he gave me as a business card, I thought that was pretty dope. And then we just chopped it up, found out a bit about his story that y'all will hear. And then he introduced me to this other incredible brother that's here, Mr. Wale Forrester. And I mean, it was just supposed to be. It was meant to be. This is one of those connections that just made sense right away. And so I'm really, really happy to have these two men here with us today. And so without further ado, why don't we, you brothers, introduce yourself. Carlton, you could go first since I met you first. You know what I'm saying? You know, I've known you the longest. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
That's what's up.
Carlton, man, give us a little bit about what brings you here today.
Hey, good evening, man. Just excited to be here. We appreciate y'all for creating this platform. Even before I talk about me, man, I just want to talk about just the example that y'all set. And like leadership is exemplified through role modeling, and for you to be as successful as you are, both you and Mike, to take the time to say, brother, are you good? Like that's the first step, man. A lot of times, often we as leaders, those who are successful and high performing, we're always entrenched in our work and overconsumed with the things that we're dedicated to, and no one takes the time to ask the leader, are they good? Because everyone looks up to the leader. And so this platform is so essential because you created the space for leaders such as ourselves to be able to say, hey, are you good, man? Let me take the time. Let me take the second to focus and realize and check in to see if you're good. And that leads me to where we are, like in our work as the leadership and wellness partners. I'm Charleton Lightfoot, one of the partners of our consultancy firm, and our overall goal is to spread wellness in life in general. And how do we approach that? It's a simple process. Like we are what we call research practitioners, people who through experience and also education have invested the time to explore what it means to understand what wellness is, and then also how to go out and create community and foster other branches and organizations and groups of wellness, so that our communities, our workplaces, our families can experience life truly and what it's supposed to be. And so we call that, and we'll explain it a little bit more, but that's the ACT of leadership. And ACT is the acronym that relates to being authentic, being courageous, and being truthful. And the act of leadership is what this podcast is doing. It's role modeling and exemplifying. And so what we're here, we're advocates, and we like to explain that an advocate is someone that engages with an individual to ensure that they are able to get to where they want to go. And so we stand in this space as wellness advocates, research practitioners, offering our knowledge, experience, and information, but more importantly, the vulnerability of the journey that we have gone through that led us to this position. And we're going to get into that a little bit later, but I come from having 17 years of experience within the fire service as a leader, occupying various positions as a lieutenant, also working out of the office of the fire chief for 2 different leadership regimes, and filling spaces as public information officer, recruitment officer, as well as community liaison officer, essentially being involved in making sure that the work that I was doing was leading to creating opportunities for those that look like people such as ourselves, and also ensuring that equity and inclusion was represented in the process of bringing individuals into the organization. And more importantly, my overall commitment was to build community. And so when I removed myself from industry, the question was, how can I still impact community? How can I still make sure that wellness or good intentions can be elevated? And so that led us to creating this consultancy, where we came together, identified that there was a need to educate ourselves and also our community about the importance and the value of wellness. And so that's why we're here today, and we're going to talk. I look forward to talking about it and sharing some of my experiences, and just being vulnerable and being open, because I feel comfortable in this space. And so I know you didn't ask me, but you said, brother, are you good? And, so I'm going to jump right in, man. You know what I'm saying? It's like double dutch. I'm going to find my rhythm and I'm going to jump in, brother. So this is my rhythm right here. So if I was looking at my emotional wheel today, I got on my yellow shirt, man. Everything I do is intentional. That's the thing. Nothing happens by accident. I don't just occupy a space without being intentional. And so I put on this color yellow today, because if I looked at my emotional wheel and the colors that were represented, this is the category of beast mode. So I'm in my beast mode bag today. I'm feeling energetic. I'm feeling confident, man. I'm feeling like I'm bringing something to the table and ready to make it happen. So that's where I am.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. Thank you. Let me just real quick, can you let everybody know like where you're from and a little bit about your journey to, you talked about being in the fire service. How did you get to the fire service briefly? And then we'll get to you, Wale, in just 1 second.
Man, that's a beautiful story. So my journey, right? I would like to say, I believe when I got on my wellness journey, I would say when I realized that I was on my wellness journey, I began to break down like my life into certain acts or scenes. And so the first scene that I would take you to is like going back to when I was in high school, like how I ended up getting on this journey was that it led me to a path to where I am today. In high school, I was a high school athlete, and I had dreams of course, like many athletes, of going to Division I and playing football, right? And so my goal was to get a scholarship and go play football. The first act was realizing that sometimes you make plans and those plans don't always work out the way that you design them, but the plan still moves forward. So from me graduating high school, I actually was given the opportunity through my scholastic endeavors to go and continue my education at UC Berkeley. UC Berkeley is where, yeah, go Bears to the fullest, man. You know,
that's where my baby's at right now. Represent, man. Say it again.
Yeah. Go Bears, man, in the building, man. Bears in the building. Fight on, roll on, you Bears, you know, to the fullest. So at UC Berkeley, that's where I ran into my guy, man, Wale. And so and that's where the Act One really began to identify all the main characters and leading me in my trajectory. Now, this brother Wale was a blessing, right? Because in each point in my life, I always had someone that I can look up to as an example to inspire me to say, you know what, even though the thing that you want to accomplish seems that nobody is able to do it, because you know one person that has been able to successfully do it, that means you could go ahead and duplicate it and do it too. And so I give a shout out to my cousin, Gerard Cherry. He was a two-time Super Bowl winner for the New England Patriots. He played at UC Berkeley, but because my cousin was able to go to UC Berkeley and play football, I said, you know what? I know him, and because I know him, that means that could be a reality for me. And so I began that journey looking up to someone and following what they were able to do and using it as an inspiration, right? Fast forward, UC Berkeley, after I graduated, I was working at my church. This good brother on the scene said, you know what? I want to become a firefighter. And I said, man, for real, man, my brother worked for the department. This another key player in the act, right? My brother Charles, my older brother, we 18 months apart. And so we're so close that all I did do in life was look up to him to try and match or do what he was able to do, because he was older and I was trying to meet the bar and the standard that he set. So throughout my life and my journey, there were some key players that set an example that could provide, that pushed me to the next level and gave me guidance. And so I connected Wale with my brother at the fire department. Wale said he was going after it, and I said, you know what, sign me up, coach. I'm jumping in. Let's do it together, man. Ain't no reason for you to go through it by yourself. And so we hit this journey on our EMT class, trying to put in applications. We did something that was unrealistic. We said, you know what, we give ourselves a year to get hired into the fire service. Now, most people, whoever went on that journey, to understand how unrealistic it is to say you're going to do it in a year, it takes most folks 3 to 5 years in order to enter into industry. All right. And so we, being the individuals that we are, we like to set goals, man, and we like to challenge ourselves and push ourselves. Boom. We end up getting the careers within 1 year. So we shatter records right there, right? So we immerse ourselves into the career like full throttle. Just like we said, we're on this accelerated program to get hired. We also went on an accelerated program within the organization to be leaders, to elevate and progress and promote. But more importantly, throughout that process, some way we never realized, or no one taught us or showed us the importance and the value of wellness.
Right.
Wellness was non-existent.
let us get to that point, because that's actually the crux of what we're going to talk about tonight. But before we get there, let's I want to hear some about Wale, for him to introduce himself, because that intersection is really what we want to talk about tonight. That's a good segue. But first, I want to hear from Wale. Wale, if you don't mind, just give us a introduction of who you are and how you got
it. Yeah. First of all, I'm gonna check out, is my audio good? I mean,
your
can
audio
you
is
hear
great.
me better?
Your
All
audio is
right,
great.
Okay, God is great. God is great. I'm Wale Forrester. I am the other managing partner of the Leadership and Wellness Partners with my brother Charleton. I come from Los Angeles, California. I was raised in LA. I played football. From playing football, I went on to get a scholarship at the University of California at Berkeley. So it's Go Bears all day.
Go Bears.
That's where I met my sweetheart, my college sweetheart, who I've been married to for 17 years now, going on 18 years in June. After I left playing football, I went to the fire service with Charleton. We got hired in a record time. And that was amazing. It was a blessing. I finished a 15-year career where I achieved the rank of lieutenant, first line supervisor. I was a lieutenant at a double house, rescue officer, truck company officer, training officer for my battalion, like BART liaison, all of the things that, are evidence of really being active, really being present, and really contributing. I did all of those things. While I was a firefighter, I started a family with my wife. I have two beautiful children, a 15-year-old daughter, a 12-year-old son. Beautiful family, and I got a dog, I got a Borble, and I got a dog. So, all of those great things. But while I was in the fire service, started a family, and after I started a family, I started a business. So for the last 14 years, I've been co-founder of a company called Hustle Clean. We make personal care products for athletes and adventure sports. You can find my products in Target nationwide, REI, Dick's Sporting Goods, Amazon, so on and so forth. But my legacy, the most meaningful work that I do, is this leadership and wellness, because although I have achieved every goal that I've ever set, I have not been well to myself in the process. And I don't want a role model, and I didn't want a role model to the people who look to me for influence. I didn't want a role model to them how to self-sacrifice, how to adopt this hero mentality, because that's not the legacy. All the stuff that I've done, people can clap, they can cheer, because that was for them. Your wellness is for you. So that's the legacy I want to leave. I want to leave the example of how to pour into yourself and let others get the overflow, as opposed to pouring all of yourself into other people and you just getting a little bit of the overflow. It's not sustainable. So that's me, regular brother from LA, playing a little football, do a little business, and walking in my purpose, and leaving a legacy, with one of my closest friends, my brother right here, Charleton.
Man, that's good stuff.
Right?
That's good stuff. Let me just real quick, because I don't know if this went over people's head, but y'all already know where I'm going. Both you brothers already know. You already know, because I think that oftentimes people talk about sacrifice. They talk about leadership. They talk about wellness. But it's in the book, right? It's a lot of book answers. Not always, but a lot of times people. But you two brothers actually did something that is very admirable to demonstrate your commitment to being well. And that is, you both left careers way earlier than what is typical. And I've been in the fire service for 25 years this year. So I know what you did at, was it 15 and 17 years? So can you just briefly just talk about that? Don't let that go past everybody's head.
Yeah, I'll jump in, man. And congrats on your 25 years, man, in the fire
Thank
service.
you.
That's a huge accomplishment, brother. You know, it was hard to leave industry for sure because what had become so routine, so dependable, and so reliable at the same time had become the crippling mechanism to prevent me from actually understanding like what it meant to be well. And so the challenge that I faced is how we really came up with our curriculum, which is the ACT, like the acronym, the ACT. I had to be authentic with myself in that space. And like, what was the dynamic? Like I was making a couple hundred a year, like to keep it 100, like
Yeah.
making a couple hundred a year, like if I wanted to, it was possible. Like, I kid you not. Also, like Wale said, man, I started a business just investing in real estate. Like when I got into industry originally, just because I had that guaranteed income. And my thought process is, you got to create, you have to control like your future and your destiny. And the only way you can do that is if you take intentional actions to prepare yourself to have a means of income and stability in the event the worst outcome comes to fruition. And so one day at work, man, how did it happen? One day at work, a call came in, and I was supposed to respond and go on that call, but the reality is like every part of me on a regular day would have instantly responded to go on that call, but this day, man, my soul just said, you know what? I I really don't want to.
Wow.
And the dynamic of uh, being in a career where you're so invested, you're committed, you're dedicated, being put in a position where the thing that you are so accustomed to doing and that you love doing, you hit a point in a wall where you could no longer tolerate doing it no more. That was the time when I knew that something was off and something was wrong. And that was actually the beginning of me exploring the process of identifying like and being authentic with myself, because to be honest, like once I got in the industry and saw how it moved, I knew like, man, naturally it didn't align with like my value system, and it didn't align with like all the goals that I wanted to do. And more importantly, because of the gifts and the vision and provision that like God had given to me, the system was limiting, but the system was comfortable because it was so easy. Like I could show up and take care of myself and take care of my family and help others on a consistent basis. And so because of that, I began to convince myself that it was all right to settle and become complacent in what was being presented to me and justifying it, even though I knew inside of me I was rejecting it. And so the thing that caused me to hit that intersection to pursue wellness was that I had to be real with myself. And so as first responders, I always use the analogy that like we put people before ourselves. And so we approach life looking through the window, searching for anyone, looking for any opportunity to help someone else. And so we live a life that is comprised of a house that is full of windows, always outward facing. And in that house, we don't have any mirrors. And if you never take the time to go stand in front of the mirror and look at yourself, then you never know, brother, are you good? And so that day, I finally turned around from the window and I looked in the mirror, and I had to be real with myself. And I said, brother, I'm not good. So that's how I ended up getting there. And I elaborate more, but I'll give it to Wale. Let him jump in.
Wow. That was powerful.
Right?
Where he said a house with no mirrors.
Yeah.
Right. Taking care of others, right? Because I love what you said there, Carlton, because that's so often what we do as men, especially as Black men, even if we're not first responders, right? We take on that role in our families, with our close friends, with our loved ones, to be that one that's going to protect and look out for, right? And so we're always doing that and not expecting anybody to be taking care of us, right? That's we accept that that's not the role. And so I appreciate you sharing that. And we're going to dive more into that because I know there are other brothers out there that feel the same way, that they've been looking out at other folks and haven't realized that there's a mirror near them. And if they just take a look, they might see what's really going on, because that could be even more scary than trying to take care of other folks, right? To look at what's going on with yourself. So I appreciate you sharing that. Wale, I want to follow up what Jason said. How was that for you to make that change? We talked a little bit about last night when we were kind of prepping for the show, deciding in the midst of everything else, right, that you've got a wife that's been your sweetheart for years. You've got these beautiful kids that you're raising as well, and you're going to leave a steady check coming from the government, right?
Yeah.
And Jason and I know that life, right? That there's some comfort in that, to decide I'm going to leave all that to join my brother. We're going to do some other stuff, and I'm going to be good with that, and my family's going to be good with that, because that's the other part of it, right? We got to make sure that other people are good, because that's what's in our heart. So share a little bit about your story and what you told me last night.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So, my story was crazy. I first of all, I'm a very turned up individual, aggressive, type A. I love to go after it. If I'm somewhere, I'm really there, right? I'm never an honorable mention. I'm always trying to be the best. There's evidence that I was wherever I was, right? Like I'm always gonna be remembered, 100%. That's how I live my life, and that's how I continue to live my life. So I was getting ready for work one morning in my home. I'm packing my bags like I always do, because I'm gonna be going away for maybe 48 hours. And as I'm going, I always go kiss my wife goodbye before I check on the kids and hop into the rig to my truck to get to work. And as I'm going to lean into my wife, I start breaking down crying. Like I get overwhelmed with an emotion that I don't necessarily just have. So I'm just breaking down crying, and she wakes up like, "Hey, you good? You good?" Huh? And I was like, "I don't know." She's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I don't know." She said, "What's wrong?" "I don't know what's wrong with me." She's like, "You cannot go to work." She said, "You said you cannot go to work today." So I called in sick, and that was the first. That was. I did not know that my last day was my last day, because I never went back after that. So after that, I went immediately into therapy, because I thought I was losing my mind, because this is just not how I am. And I started to unpack my career. From day one, I was hired at 22. So like from day one, I've been in all the busiest firehouses. I've been in the murder zones. I've been at all the biggest incidents, and not just a bystander. I'm on the mic. I'm making decisions. I'm leading. I'm a leader of men and women who are older than me a lot of the times. But it was rooted in like competence. I would train maniacally. I wanted to be the best at wherever I did. So, and every time we lost, I took it really personal, right? Like, so we go to a medical and somebody dies, I'm like, man, nobody should die on our watch. Some people can go back to the firehouse and say, we did the best we could do. That's just our job. I'm like, nah, no one should die when we on scene. So all those years of taking all those things in, and then doing my best to be the greatest dad, husband, provider I could be, it all came to a head. Because what I realized is that although I was burning hot, and I am a high performer. I am an A+ player. Although I was burning through that organization hot at the highest level possible, it was unsustainable. That flame was burning too. I burned through that fuel faster. Some people could burn. Some people could simmer. Some people could simmer their fuel for a whole career. They could simmer for 30 years, man. Simmer like a crock pot. I was burning. I threw all the fuel in. I gave it 15, and they're gonna remember me. So so that was my I call it my oh shit moment. When I was like, oh shit, I have been running a race that's unsustainable. I am tired. The monkey is on my back, and there is no way I can get to that last 200. I done ran too fast. I don't regret it, because I believe that like God says that, like, through our we boast in our weakness, right? So like from me being weak, it showed that God was strong, and He got to take over my life and give me a more sustainable pace and give me the energy the energy rooted in wellness to run my race.
Mm.
And that's how I got here today. So that's how I left. And after I went through aggressive therapy, life coaching, hopped on a road for 14 months in the RV with my family during COVID, found myself, lost myself, and found myself again. And then came to the table with all of the lived experience and all the academia, and put together curriculum so that we could just continue to help other brothers be good and to run a sustainable race that gives them energy as opposed to depleting it.
Man, you know, that to me, the first thing I think about is, so like you both decided halfway through your career. People don't realize in the fire service, folks know how much they leaving on the table. So it's not just the daily, it's not the paychecks twice a month. It's not the 100 racks, 200 racks a year. It's not that.
Mm-hmm.
It's the defined benefit afterwards. Like people say, and you get on a job that has a pension and you stay till you get it. Our granddaddies did it. Some of our parents have done it. My kids know me to have done that, but you said no. And you left. What was it about you that said, I'm going to stop doing this career? I'm going to give this up. What motivated you to say, I'm going to give it up and then go into a mental health space while you're going through what many would consider a crisis in the beginning? Like, how did you bridge that gap? Talk on that real quick, Wale, just how you did it. And we want to ask you, Carleton, how you, because to me, that's a really, really big deal to do something like that. So talk a bit about how you got past that mental hurdle, because that's a lot.
Yeah, you know, what's funny is that we talk about this. This is like one of our, like, man, how do we get here though? Like, this is crazy how we came outside of it. And we actually turned it into one of our trainings. We talk about resilience. Like a lot of brothers, we're not resilient, right? And like, because we think that being resilient is making it through some tough shit. Like, oh, you made it through? You're resilient. No, that means you're a survivor. So you could come out maimed, battered. You can come out worse than before. You're not resilient. Resilience is when you go through something and you come out on the other side of it with your wellness intact. You know what I mean? So, and if you come out with your wellness intact, then you're resilient because you were prepared for adversity. So I think that for me personally, even when I was going through a crisis, I was strong already. I was already doing things by the grace of God, but also just through my lived experience, being an athlete, being a God-fearing man, having a church, being happily married, having structure. Like, so when I was able to go through something that really should have just knocked me all the way down, although I wasn't holistically well, like we have this thing called the wellness wheel. I wasn't holistically well. I was well enough to like get hit by this car. I'm limping, but although I'm limping, I'm able to continue to walk because I did some work and I have to give myself credit for. So that I think that's really how we were able to redefine this moment and use that moment to be like fertilizer for us, as opposed to just, shit. Sorry for my my language, but so I think that's what it is. Well, for me, I think we done my lived experience. If you look at my background, it's like, okay, brother, you had enough wellness. You was happy. You was doing great things. You just had a rough time. So you weren't unwell. If you were fully unwell, you would not have made it through. This thing would have killed you, brother. So I think that's what it was for me.
Before we go to Carleton, let me just follow up with one thing with Wale. You were saying that your wife came up to you and asked if you were good. As you think back on what you were going through at that time, what did it look like, or what did it feel like for you that she was noticing enough that she could speak out? Because some folks, it sounds almost like she was that mirror for you. She was the person that was reflecting back to you what she was seeing and trying to say, hey, I see some stuff. What do you think she was seeing that made her think, man, my man is not good. I need to talk to him about this.
I mean, so we found out, or I found out last, of course, that she was noticing a trend, right? It was a trend. Like I was beginning to lose my I won't call it my consciousness. So I wasn't as socially aware. I wasn't as aware of how I was showing up, right? Like so when you're not aware of how you show up, you can easily offend. You could you could be the person that's not reading the room at any time. So I started just to lose myself because I was so overconsumed and I was just on autopilot. And then in this moment where I lost control, this is something that I always try. This was just something that I protected all the time. I'm in control. I'm in control. Even if it's chaos, it's control chaos. But when you're weeping like a baby and you all these muscles on you, you're weeping like a baby because of this thing, you're admitting that I don't have control. So it was like, whoa, you actually hide that from people. And you're being so vulnerable right now. That must mean you don't have it. So that was it. And it kind of reminds me when like when you was a kid and like you say you cut your head or something and you don't start crying until somebody like, what's on your head? It was kind of like that moment, that's how I felt. I was like, oh, I'm in trouble. I thought I was just gonna bath. You looking at me like this? I must really be in trouble. So that's how it felt. It felt like a sense of urgency. It escalated that day for me. It made me say, there is no way I'm going back to bed, going back to work, and just acting like this moment didn't happen because she ain't never looked at me like that. Never.
Wow.
No.
Yeah.
When a man finds a wife, he finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord.
Amen.
Man. Amen.
Man. What about you, Carlton? What was that? What was that like for you?
Man, it was a hard reality to accept, right? And as I look back and I reflect on how I ended up there, I attribute it to a couple of things. Like number one, I had to begin to exemplify, embody my self-awareness and embrace my own self-efficacy, like my belief in my power and my abilities, like and really harnessing like what my superpower is. And so how did I develop and foster that? Like I thank God, like, but in every space that I occupied, like I was always motivated to engage with someone who was already in the position that I inspired to get to. So, like, what do I mean by that? At the fire department, there was a captain by the name of Rahman Muhammad, a brother that was a leadership. He was a leader, always exemplified helping others that were trying to get forward. And he showed me and kind of took me under my wing to give me confidence and empower me to believe in my ideas and my thoughts and my values and to not allow anyone to prevent me from carrying them forward. So I had one mentor and so what that did, that built up my confidence, right? So I began to occupy my workspace individually, not questioning how much it was different from everyone else, but embodying and understanding the value that I brought to the space individually, right? And so there began to be some isolation and some separation from the norm and from what the majority of the workforce was doing. And so whenever we get in to start understanding like occupational stress and then also how the work environment influences you negatively, when the individual begins to separate themselves as a result of adversity or not being accepted, then it begins to isolate them and take them away from their community and their resource and their ability to like thrive. And so early on, some of the challenges, because I wanted more and I didn't want to be complacent, it began to put me in a space that was adverse to what was the industry standard, or what we said that the majority of my peers that were accustomed to groupthink and the traditional way of operating, it began to set me apart, right? And so then I began to feel some of the resistance. So then and although I didn't like it, although I didn't accept it, I said, you know what, I'm resilient. I can ignore it. It's not going to impact me, right? And so as I began to progress in my career, thankfully, I continued to engage with individuals that were willing to take me to the next level. And so because I was progressing, I never took the time to look in the mirror because I was worried about seeing what was out in front of me. And I was just focusing on that goal, never thinking about myself, never taking the time to recharge myself, revitalize myself. I was just always focusing on the next goal. And so, and even on that journey, I never celebrated the small victories. And so I believe one of the reasons why I ended up getting into this challenging space, dealing with occupational stress and wanted to remove myself from that environment, is because I forgot and lost the sense of celebrating the small victories. All right. And so if I would have took the time to celebrate the small victories, maybe I would have slowed down a little bit. Maybe I would have took the time to enjoy the accomplishments that I was making along the way. And maybe I could have slowed down this process of becoming overwhelmed and stressed, right? That's the thought process. And so as I continued to move on, once again, I had a mentor. First, African American Metropolitan female chief Teresa Deloach Reed took me under her wing and began to mentor me and create the space for me to be a leader within the organization. Once again, let me know, you know what? I understand that what you're doing is different than what the industry has been accustomed to doing, but it's necessary for you to do it. So creating a space for me to grow personally and individually. And so I worked under her, worked out of her office, introduced programs in the community, introduced programs within the organization, began to flourish professionally, right? But personally, never taking the time to celebrate the victories, never taking the time to take a vacation, never taking the time to look back and reflect on this journey that I was making. Then after she created the space for someone else that looked like her to come in as the fire chief, that chief Darren White, brought me into his administration too, and I also took on another position. So all these times while I'm moving up in the organization and making critical investments into the advancement of the organization and of our people and the community, I never took the time to look at myself to try and help myself. And that was the challenge, right? And so at one day, it finally hit me. So it took me all the way that day where I said I went to that call where I said it was no more. I would explain to you that while I was working, and even to this day, like most people that know me will say, I can't tell if you're serious or if you're joking. Like you are emotionless. Like when I engage with you, you do not demonstrate like what side you stand on. Like you could say something very serious with a laughing face and you'll be dead serious. And I don't know if you're joking or if you're serious. I can't predict which way you're going or which way you're coming from. And one of the things that I attributed to, and I had to think about it, but this is when it all began. Like when I first started in the fire service, we went to a call one weekend. I was working out at the East, 50th and Foothill, Station 18. It's a double house. Saturdays is like the sideshow playoffs. Like, you know, on the weekend, everybody's going to come out and go get in the sideshow. So
and
now,
just so they know, everybody knows they talking about Oakland. They talking about the town. They work for Oakland Fire Department. So just contextualize that. It's going to be turned up. You know what I mean? You're in a double house. That means there's an engine in the truck. And so, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
It's going down. It's going down. So I'm working in the town, right? Like, so I'm from Richmond, right? And my parents, we grew up in the suburbs, but thankfully I had a cousin that was in the town, man. And he was like the man when it comes to, he went to Skyline, which was like the school to go to, you know? So my cousin, we would roll on the weekend. He'd be like, hey, y'all come out, come from the suburbs and kick it with me. And we're going to run through the town and we're going to have a good time. So when I was in high school, I used to hit the sideshows. And like, this is me.
What is a sideshow?
Sideshow is when, you know, everybody with the cars pull out, they're gonna hit their donuts. And basically to describe it, you got the boulevard.
They ghost ride their whips.
Man, we
fully all
hey, the sideshow was lit, man. Everybody was there, right? And as a culture and a community, everybody took part in it, right? And this is so critical because me as a person, me as someone who's highly educated, someone who's committed going to college, someone who's an athlete, who's a contributor to society, participated in the sideshow. Now, fast forward, the perception of the sideshow from the organization that I worked with was that everyone are people who are like criminals. These are people who are a threat to society. These are people who are interrupting our peace as a result that we're at work, and like essentially taking away the human aspect and perception of them. Why is this important? My first couple months within the organization, it's a weekend, sideshow pops off, we get a call, there's a vehicle fire. This car, some kids was in the sideshow running up and down Foothill Boulevard, man. They was running from the police, because you know when the police pull up, anybody who don't know, all right, the sideshow, you hit an intersection, everybody get out the car, you trying to holler at all the girls, everybody looking at the cars, you just having a good old time. Like it's like a mobile party. Like you go from block to block and set up a new party, right? So everybody kicking it, and when the police pull up, everybody run to their car, they jump in it, and then they drive to the next block and then reset up and then have fun. So apparently the police pulled up on these kids and they began to get out, and somehow they lost control, hit a power pole. They were going so fast, the car hit the power pole, collapsed on their legs. They were stuck in the vehicle, right? Couldn't get out, vehicles on fire, right? And so, man, I'm there, we show up. It's so standard for us to show up and put out a vehicle fire. So the thing that was so clear to me is, number one, I know it's Saturday, I know it's the sideshows, I've been to the sideshow before. So I pull up and I'm like, man, this could have been me. So this hit hard. Like I'm going through that process and I'm empathizing with this group, these kids that are stuck in this car, but all my peers are kind of like, hey, they're like detached from it and not really paying attention to it. In my mind, I'm like, is this standard? Like, is this how it's supposed to be? Like, we're totally disconnected from the people that we're serving, and then also not aware or allowing it to impact us emotionally. And so, man, as we're putting out the fire, we notice there's two bodies in the car, and we like, oh, that's like, you see them like to the skeleton, man. They were trapped and stuck in the vehicle.
This specific call is one that got you to where you wanted to. Okay.
Never left. This image never left me, man, from the beginning of my career. Never left me. And the thing how
far away was that call from when you decided to? What was the distance between that call?
15 years.
So that call 15 years later. But and just for the people to understand, when you show up on a call, like there's a whole bunch of stuff going on, and mentally sometimes, depending on how many times you've been to these calls, they're just routine. You just go, you put a fire out. Now you go, you mentally set yourself to get to this point, and you realize, whoa, there's two bodies in there. And now they've hit they've hit a pole or a box.
It was a pole, man, the big poles, not the one that fall down. It's the one that it's no way you winning against that one.
So their car's wrapped around the dashboard and everything is pinning them. So this becomes a rescue. So now you have to think more. Now you got to try to get the stuff off the people in order to pull them out. They probably screaming, doing a whole bunch of whatever, and then they're young. So when you're probably some youngsters, so you're saying, man, this could have or should have been me. I used to participate in this stuff. This could have been me. So fast forward then to like, as you're, how does this image come up in your mind to get you to where that was the last straw? And then I want to get to a few more questions. How does that work for you?
Man, the thing was, when we got back to the station, I was thinking like everybody's gonna be shook and like, man, talk about it. And they were like, nothing ever happened. We got back to the station, nobody said a word, and they were like, hey man, let's go finish watching TV. And so I'm new to the game, right? So you look for role models, like they tell you, all right, copy what the senior firefighters do. That's the way that you learn how to be a good firefighter, right? And so when they showed me like to be emotionally detached, they showed me that the reality is that you don't talk about what you experience. And the reality is, it's like, better yet, you don't even deal with the people as if they're human. It's just transactional. And so I carried that perception because this was the beginning of my career. I said, oh, this is the way that I have to behave and carry out myself in order to be successful. And so what did it do to leading me? There was 15 years of me approaching calls, engaging with people and seeing people, and I was being emotionally detached and never addressing the emotions or the feelings that I encountered and how the calls were impacting me. And so I wasn't being authentic with myself. I was telling myself, because I didn't cause it, it's all right. Even though I just showed up to help, it's not really impacting me and it's not really affecting me. But what I realized, though, I used the example in our workshops when we talk about occupational stress. If anybody knows a 5-gallon bucket, like what happened to me, how I ended up getting to this point. Imagine yourself with 2 5-gallon buckets and the faucet is dripping, not pouring down, but dripping. Every call that you go on is a drip into the bucket, and you're holding those buckets with your hands, right? And so I always like to ask the students, okay, how long are you going to stand there and hold those buckets when they get full? And so for 15 years, my bucket had been filling up. Right. And that day when I can no longer go on that call, I decided, you know what? I got these buckets full of stress that my hands can no longer handle. My hands can no longer hold. I have to ask for help. Like, so what we do whenever we face something that's overwhelming.
Before you get, but see, I want you to focus on you, because I know it's like to give advice to everybody. But I want to see from a firsthand perspective, how did you, with your buckets, and then I want to get to a few more questions, but you're standing there, you got this bucket, you realize after all these years, it sounds like that you came to a realization, like, this bucket's full and I need to do something about it. But now you have to make a decision to leave your job, right? You have to make a decision now that I'm standing here and I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to do this. And so, and that's a huge life issue for people. Mm-hmm. And I bet you $100 to a bag of sugar cookies that there are people all over America right now, in the world, but all over America, that are in that position right now. They realize that over time, I've been doing this for 15 years, and maybe they don't see the sick babies, the mothers crying because their children have been killed, or grandparents gone, all the stuff that we see, they haven't had that. They haven't been able to do that. But they're to the point now where they're like, I don't really know what to do. And maybe what they need to do is give up their job. Maybe they're not doing what they've been called to do. But where does somebody find that courage to be able to do that? And I want to explore that, because it's one of the things I want people to, and I know what you're talking about, Carlton. I get that. And so what I want to do is drill down into how we make decisions like that, because for you, it seems more obvious. I've seen a bunch of dead bodies, but other people don't have that. So real quick, if you can, I want to pivot real quick and say, and get some real deal, like in that moment, Wale, what were you thinking when you realized that I'm about to quit my job? Like,
yeah. First of all, people always hit me over this because, you couldn't have predicted me not showing up. But to hit that point, you gotta be authentic first. So like for people, so you meet people, you be like, oh, that's a real brother right there. Like, real brothers are gonna get to it faster, right? Because you're closer to the truth, right? Because that's why you're real. You can't even hide who you are, right? So in that moment, I had to be authentic. How do I feel right now? And how do I want to feel? Because and I had to have the courage to look at it and say, man, although this shit don't look pretty, I might be embarrassed. I might leave M on the table. I might, be financially marred and scarred, and people might talk about me and challenge my manhood over quitting my job. I have to have the courage to say, I'm still gonna face that. I'm gonna face that for myself. And then I have to look at the truth of it. Like, how is this making me better? Like, is this what I really want to do? Or am I codependent? Is this some codependency shit going on? And do I love the way that these brothers, that brother Mike and brother Jason, brother Carson will talk well about me? Oh, this brother's so solid, he goes to work and takes care of his family. But when that's not really what gives me life. So am I codependent? Or do I want to actually grow up one day and become independent? Right? And say, you know what? I'm gonna do this for me because I love me, and I'm gonna do what God has for me because I don't feel good right now. I do not feel good. And a lot of times we walk around feeling how we should feel. That shit is not real. How do you really feel? And how do you want to feel? And let's deal with the truth in the middle. How do we get to that, how you want to feel? Because that other shit, that pretending stuff, that's good. If you need applauses from me, that's codependency. That's like a kid performing for mommy and daddy. But being a real man or a real woman, a grown adult, has life working through them instead of happening to them, you got to sit down and be fucking real at some point. And that's the moment. I have to be real with myself. I don't feel good right now.
But that's it, right? You are hitting it, right? You got to get to that point where I got to be real with myself, and I'm trying to make sure that our audience can understand what that feels like, because it was funny, Wale, you were like, because a real brother, they would come to it faster, and then you both say, I was on the job for 15 years. A lot of people, 15 years ain't fast. So
that's real. That's real.
Right.
Yeah.
But y'all are real now. And I love that, because it's so funny to me. As you guys are each talking about this part of your story, you both use the same language. You got to be authentic. You got to be courageous. You got to be truthful, which is the ACT, right? That's what the acronym is. You guys are actually living in that. But for somebody that's not a firefighter, for somebody that might be a school teacher or a bus driver or a football coach or whatever, how would they know for themselves, I'm not being authentic, I need to be courageous, and I need to start being a truth teller or find truth tellers? Because you both talked about having somebody else, whether it's a mentor or a loved one, come up to you and speak truth to you, right? Carlton, you talked about having mentors, and Wale, you talked about your lovely wife being that person that could speak truth to you. How can you encourage the brothers and sisters that are listening to this? Because I know what I named this podcast, but I know that there's sisters that listen every week to it. How can you help them know that, man, that job you got might not be God's got for you, and you need to listen to a voice and move when it's time to move so you can save yourself? And like they say on the airplanes, put the mask on yourself first and then try to save somebody else. So Wale, first, why don't you do that, and Carlton, we'll come back to you.
Yeah, so I have a test. It's called the Yum versus Yuck test, right? So for instance, I believe that God has, we are all, fearfully and wonderfully made. We have a unique DNA and design. We call it intuition, but like God has made us pretty unique. We kind of know what's for us and what's not for us when we really tap in and be still. So the Yum versus Yuck test is this. If you ask me, hey, Wale, you want some crab? Yeah. You say, Wale, you want some chitlins? No. Why you want chitlins? I just don't like chitlins, right? So when it says, so if I'm going to work and I'm like, yo, Wale, do you like being on a team? No. So why are you a firefighter? And Wale, do you like the burden of do you like having the burden of judging? No, I'm on my own business. I don't want to do that. So why are you a judge? Right. So like the Yum versus Yuck. Wale, do you want to be tied down to one woman for the rest of your life? No. Well, that's why you have marriage problems. Right? That's not what you want. Right. So I think we're trying to make it esoteric and deep, but it comes down to a physiological response, which is sitting down, being still, deep in prayer, and saying, how do I want to feel? How do I feel about this? How do I want to feel when I go to work? If I want to feel no pressure, I cannot go get a job that is high pressure. If I want to feel, if I want to feel financially well, I can't go and get a job that doesn't pay over 6 figures for me, right? So it's like, so that's my practical way. It's keeping it very simple. What do you like versus not what you should like, because you should want to make the most money. You should want to have a high paying job. You should want to be a CEO. I want to have my own business. No, you don't. You like to sleep, and you don't like high pressure, and you like to get paid every 2 weeks. You do not want to have your own business. So at a very granular level, organic level, that's my practical advice. I'm the practical one. That's my educated brother. He gonna give you some, that's a good quote.
Yeah, for the sake of time, jump on it, and I want to drill on you. I want people to connect with you, Carlton, in this particular thing here, like what it was like, what that's like for you.
Yeah, like, so going back to those, carrying those buckets, everybody has those buckets that they're holding of the stress and experience that they have. The question is, are you going to continue to hold those buckets while they're full? Or are you going to put them down? I had that moment where the realization was that I needed someone to help me carry that heavy weight. And so when we look at ourselves and actually take that time to look in the mirror, the question is, can I handle this on my own? Or do I need someone to help me carry this weight? And so the question is, okay, so if I realize I need to carry this weight, what do I do? We developed the legacy program because, number one, we as a people often don't talk about legacy, or it wasn't promoted. Like, we talk about your name is what you pass down to someone else, but we don't put on paper really what it means to truly embody and create a legacy. So we, through our wellness journey, said, you know what? How can we make it plain? How can we make it simple? How can we empower people to understand how we began to experience wellness? So first, it starts with evaluating the 8 categories of wellness. And I'm going to tell you what they are. Number one, your physical wellness. Physical wellness, talking about, are you working out? Are you eating well? Are you doing the things to revitalize your body and get rest and take care of yourself to be the best you every time you show up? Next is our social wellness. What is the community that you have? Do you have people around you in your circle that are constantly making withdrawals from your account? Or do you have people in your circle that are depositing into your account? Anyone who has people who are only making withdrawals, eventually that account is going to be overdrafted and it's going to be no good. So your social circle has to include those that are making withdrawals and those that are making positive deposits to help you be well. Next, we have our emotional wellness that we have to evaluate. In our emotional wellness, that one thing, are you actually being authentic with yourself and identifying with your emotions, expressing them, or are you compressing them and coding them in and keeping them from everyone else, blocking them out? Next, we have our intellectual wellness. What are you doing to better yourself, further yourself, grow? More importantly, our spiritual wellness. Like, spiritually, what are you doing to put yourself in that next level? Are you realizing that spiritually, as a Christian, I believe that God is the one that directs me and empowers me. And so I have to subject myself to the directions and the expectations and the values of the Lord, and then allow him, as the Bible says, in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths, knowing also that in your weakness, he is strong. And so if there is a condition, it doesn't have to be bad. A lot of times we get stuck on identifying or classifying whatever we're experiencing as negative or positive. There doesn't have to be a negative or positive. What we are experiencing is, and the determination comes from you. What do you want to do? What is present with what is present in your life? It doesn't have to be negative. It doesn't have to be positive. It just is. And what are you going to do to fix it and get it online? Next is our occupational wellness. Like, in your work environment, is what you're doing aligning with who you are, your God-given purpose, and giving you total fulfillment, allowing you to feel full, whole, and that you're being impactful. Another thing is our financial wellness. A lot of times we don't look at it, but if them finances is funny, you're not going to be able to make any moves because you're dependent. You're in survival mode, right? You're not being resilient. You're not creating ways and opportunities. And then lastly is our environmental wellness. Like, what are you doing? What environment are you in? Are you living in a good place where you're thriving? You have peace? Are you living in a place where there's turmoil, stress? You cannot get rest. You do not feel safe. You do not feel comfortable. It is not a place that you have dreamed that you will live to be your best self. You're actually in an environment that takes away from you and prevents you from enjoying your space and being comfortable. And so those are the 8 categories of wellness. And so as I looked at those areas, then I began to we like to do an exercise in our trainings with the legacy program, whereas in looking at those 8 categories of wellness, you begin to identify what that score is between 1 through 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the strongest. You identify in each of those 8 categories what your
hang on.
I was you.
I was gonna grab you too. I was gonna grab you too. But I was gonna grab him too. I was gonna grab him too.
Just jump in and say, yo.
I know what he was doing.
I know
he was
doing
it.
Back there, after 15 years on the force to go, I'm gonna go through the 8 categories of wellness, and I'm gonna add up my score. And if my score is a certain level, then I'm gonna walk in the office and I'm gonna talk to somebody and tell them I'm putting my papers in because I did my calculations. Because unless you tell me that that's really what you did, you really sat there and you told yourself, I'm going to go through the 8 categories of wellness. I'm going to add up my scores. I'm going to give myself a score from 1 to 10 on all these. And if my score for all 8 categories totals less than 72, then I'm walking in the office and I'm telling them I'm out. Because if that's what you're doing, then I appreciate you, because you are way well than any brother I've ever met. But I want you to get away from teaching the course, and I want you to get back to sharing your story, because one of the things I think is powerful, one of the reasons why I wanted to put this podcast together, is to hear from different brothers who have different experiences, that have different stories and had different solutions. And so I get that if somebody's got all the time to do all that stuff, that's an amazing way to figure out, am I really making good choices? That's like saying, I got to make a decision on whether I take this job or not. I'm going to write down all the pros and write down all the cons, and I'm going to talk to 5 other people and get some input. But on the real, most people don't do all that stuff. So I just want to know, on the real, is that what you really did? You sat there after 15 years and you said, I'm going to get my list of the 8 wellness categories, and I'm going to put my scores together. I'm going to talk to my brother Wale, and I'm going to see, yo, this is my score is, brother. I'm out. Why don't you see what your score is, and maybe you come join me in a little bit? Or did you do something else?
I left first.
Hey, he said, because if I'm in it all the way. You know what I'm saying?
No, yeah. Hey, I didn't feel good.
Yeah.
I had to go how I felt.
Hey, 100%. Like, so, man, to answer, I didn't even know what those 8 categories were, so I didn't do that.
That's
like,
the point. So I know you didn't do
even know.
Tell us what you did.
So what I did,
in that
I asked for help.
And so
I began to like reach out for counseling and like to understand what was going on. Like, cause I had no clue, right? What was going on? What am I feeling in my body? Why do I have these headaches? Why do I have this stress? Why am I not resting? Why am I not at peace? Why am I angered a little bit and engaged? Why am I triggered with so many simple things that typically wouldn't bother me, but now are bothering me? Why did this patience and peace that I used to embody and walk in is now absent? And now I'm engaging with folks like, I got time today. So if y'all want to try and see what I got for you, I'm gonna go ahead and let you know what I got, man, because you showing up and you asking for it. So it's in your best interest to get what you asking for. And so I then began to transition from this mild and like simple person to now saying, hey man, don't play with me. And so in the professional space, now what that does, that compromises.
No. Don't go back there. Don't go back there.
No. It compromises. It compromises my money. It compromises my money, man.
Hey, hang on, Carlton.
Don't go back to the professional space. Stay right there, brother.
You were right there.
We want to talk to that brother that said, "Come on, and give me the smoke. Bring me the smoke."
I got time today.
Hey,
time today.
I know all the brothers. I know them.
Don't let me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not that dude today.
Yeah.
Right. So because we know our audience knows, and trust me, we're gonna spend some time talking about what you guys are doing with the legacy journey and all that stuff, right? We're gonna get to that. But for just a little bit longer, stay in that space of that dude that was having headaches, that was stressed out, that was irritable around people, that wasn't mild-mannered anymore, that was waiting, like we say, I wish a nigga would. I wish
for sure.
Now, today.
I wish they would. How does that guy see through that space to get back to being, I found my way to wellness? You started to say, I knew to go to somebody and get some help. How did you realize that was the key? Because that's the part, that's the bread that everybody else gets to eat from.
Yeah,
right?
I ran out of options, man. Like I hit my wits end, and I was like, when I couldn't go on that call, I said, man, that's not normal. And so right now I realized, I looked in the mirror and said, man, I'm not myself. So if I'm not myself, I can't show up and be the leader that I am in this space. And more importantly, not only am I vulnerable, but also those that I'm supposed to lead are now in a vulnerable position. And so as a result of acknowledging and being authentic about that vulnerability, I said, man, it's time to call a timeout. And what I was trying to say is, like, professionally, people knew that I was like straight up and down, like from what they know. And I began to take pages out of my brother Wale's book, like, hey man, I'm gonna show up in this space, man. If you want some, come and get some, man. I got you. Because we're gonna talk about it, and we're gonna get an understanding. The Bible saying all that get an understanding. I was gonna make sure if you came, you was gonna get an understanding, brother, of what time it was. Like, it didn't matter who it was. And typically that wasn't me. So I had to step back and say, hey man, this is not well. Like, that you don't move like that. If you engage like that with people, it's going to compromise what you're trying to accomplish, who you are, what your legacy is, like the image that you portray, and like who you have been known to be throughout your time within the organization. So that's where I hit that intersection, man, and said, you know what, I got to call this time out. And I got to figure out what's going on, because I never had felt like that before. Like, I don't take medicine. I'm a natural person, man. I try and work out, try and be healthy. And this is the first time where physically I just felt exhausted, worn out, and like I could not go on. And that's when I knew, when you asked the question, brother, you good? And I was like, man, I'm not good. I don't even know who to talk to about it, because I've always been this leader. I've always been this person that people look up to. I'm held to a higher standard because I've always held myself to a high standard. And so even in this position, if I admit that I'm not good, what is that going to do to my professional career? What is that going to do to what I have established and put all this work in and all this time? How is that going to make my family feel when they're so accustomed to me being able to just push through and pretend like nothing is bothering me? Now I'm in this repressed state, and I'm no longer existing like I normally do. I'm actually reserved and quiet and trying to figure out what's the next move. How am I still going to be myself, or am I someone else? Am I going to lose my identity? Am I going to have to rediscover who I am? Do I have to reprogram everyone into seeing who I am as a person because they know me in this one role, and now I have to exist in a different role because that role was never truly a real role? That was just an act that I was using to survive. And now I'm on the pursuit of resilience. Like, that was the question. So I had to go through, man, being authentic with myself, and more importantly, to leave, I had to be courageous. And I treated like it was, I kid you not, I used to work 6 out of 7 days of the week. You can ask anybody anytime. If there was a day to work, if there was a vacancy, I was signing up to do it. I would be at work 6 out of 7 days a week. Why? Because I was comfortable in my madness, because that's how I was maintaining it and managing it. I was comfortable in my madness and making sure that as I continued to push on, then I would never have to deal with the challenges and the reality of the things that I was struggling with. And so I stayed in that space of challenge. I stayed in that space of exhaustion. I stayed in that space of stress and chaos because I was used to it. And so when I began to be courageous and say, you know what, I don't think I'll be able to continue to live on. I don't think I really will be able to have a true legacy, because if I continue to go at this rate, I'm going to burn myself out. I'm going to exhaust myself. I had to be courageous to say, you know what, it's time for me to jump in the deep end. So I can't walk into the pool. I can't tiptoe and allow my body temperature to adjust. I got to just go ahead and dive in and immerse myself fully and getting out of this position that I'm in. And that was the truth that I embodied. The day, my last day, I went to work one day and I said a prayer. I asked God, I looked in my locker, I packed up the things, and I knew when I left work that day, I said, I'm not coming back. This is my last day and I'm not coming back. And I never looked back. And the reality is that dead space in between is so hard. And I equate it to being in the valley. You know, when you first leave, you're happy that you got out and you got a little break and you change your routine. But after you've been there for a little bit, you go from that peak into that valley. And in the valley, it gets cold. In the valley, it's not that much light. In the valley, you question yourself and ask, did I make the right decision? Like, I'm missing the things that I was so accustomed to. And in the valley, you kind of like say, hey, did I make the right decision? Like, is this where I'm supposed to be, or am I supposed to be going somewhere else? Should I be doing more? Do I need to just go ahead and go back because it was so easy? And then in the reality, you say, you know what? If you go back, you're not going to make it.
Wow.
And so I said, man, my only option is to get out of here because I'm not going to make it. And so that was how I moved.
You know,
that's what I wanted. That's the stuff I wanted.
Your man Brian Ford.
You say you didn't want the company line, huh? You didn't want the company line?
Oh man, he's giving me the party line.
But you know, and here's the thing, and I think it's important because we can stay on here for 3 hours if that, you know, that's not even a problem. But I think the beauty of these spaces, and I think what just happened here is really good, and I think it's an example of how we need to be with each other, right? Like when you see somebody that's not like, hey, brother, no, we want you, and people have to be humble enough to be like, oh, okay, well, hold on, right? And it's not like, you know, sometimes we so resistant and we like, man, can't nobody tell me nothing. It's like, no, we can't ever grow. This is a real talk space, and so what we just saw here was like real talk. And Carlton gave the real talk, and people can connect with that person because no one wants to hear about the book until they can know the person, because the book is just another book on the shelf. But people are going to purchase y'all's book because of who you two are, right? So we got to get to that point. One of the things, man, you just reminded me of something, Carlton, and thank you, man. Thank you for standing in that space the way that you did. Like, I appreciate that. And what it reminded me of 100%. What it reminded me of, and I want you two both to address the boogeyman that's on the other side of you leaving what you're uncomfortable with. Pastor Brown, a good friend of mine, once preached a message, it's hard to leave what you love. That's the one message title I remember. So Wale, jump on that real quick. Talk about that boogeyman that's on the other side of leaving what you love, your job and your whatever. Where's that boogeyman at?
Well, I mean, that boogeyman does not exist for me at all. First and foremost, and this is a live stream. Anybody can stream in. Well, no, I was one of the best of the best. They still call me for advice. So my competency always made me realize that I belonged. So if I leave it, it's because I left it. But it wasn't because nobody's better than me. So can anybody even talk about me? So there's no ego involved, because I know that I gave my all. And I was who I said I was. So that's one. What I see is that, you know, the one thing that I do have a little bit of is convenience. It was convenient because I was doing it for so long. So like having the energy to challenge myself every day doing something new, when you could just go back to something that was so convenient. You know, and I know we just talking real. So I'm gonna tell it like it is. Most people who can't leave somewhere is because they're scary. They have fear in their heart, and you got to be honest with yourself. You got to be authentic. If you're scared, you scared. If you don't want to catch the fade, just say, "Hey man, I don't want to fight. I'm scared to get into an altercation." Excuse
me, Wale. Could you break that down for the people? What does it mean?
Fade, like,
not a haircut that two people get.
I know. I'm from LA, and I'm from LA. I'm from LA, right? So I'm not from LA County. I'm from Los Angeles City, and catching the fade is that win, lose, or draw, you get your respect from showing up and swinging. But some people are so afraid of conflict and pain that they run. They never show up. So a lot of times I'm sitting down with brothers who say they want different outcomes for their life. They have a different desired outcome. And I'm like, brother, no, you don't. You're scared. It's okay to be afraid. It's not a judgment. It's an observation. You are afraid of conflict. And so I want to protect my peace, brother. You can't protect your peace. You know, what you're doing is avoiding the truth. Because you know what? Sometimes to get peace, you got to go to war. You got to fight a war to get peace. Sometimes you got to catch the fade to get peace. Peace is clarity. Peace is knowing what time it is, and peace is accepting accepting the truth of the matter. You know, all this. Not, brother. I just want to keep. You know, I want to protect my peace, brother. You know, I don't want to rock the boat. So you're scared, and that's fine, because scary people should stay for 30 years at a job they don't want to stay at. They should stay 30 years in a marriage they shouldn't want to leave. They should not go out, because you're gonna die if you go out. So you should stay safe. So that's my thing. I like to challenge the authenticity of what you're saying to me, because brother, I hear you, but you're not, but you're lying to yourself, and I won't let you lie to me. You are afraid. So let's work on your courage, because we can't even talk about change. We can't even talk about doing nothing if you have the heart of a you know what I mean.
Those of you that are from LA or even around the real LA, you know what he was just saying right there. You can read it. If you're scared, go to church, because the
it is okay to be afraid, because when you admit that you have fear, you can now work on courage. But if you acting like your situation is this and it's that, well, you know, I got responsibilities, and I hear you, but it's rooted in fear, not abundance. It's rooted in scarcity, not abundance. So if you believe you serve an omnipresent God who, you know, this my God never fails. No, you don't believe that. You believe that he's gonna fail you, so you stay where you at, and you should, because it's safe over there.
Man, I once heard it said that excuses are tools of the incompetent, used to build bridges to nowhere and monuments of nothingness, and those that use them seldom excel in anything else. That's what I hear. You know, when you just said that, Wale, and I want to hear from you, Carlton, and that, and we want that Carlton too, that one that that takes fades and all that. We don't need professor. We want the one that ties chucks up and square up. But you know, I just want to appreciate real quick, Wale, the way that you present that, and I wish that I had someone like you early on in my journey to talk with like that, because that kind of talk to certain people, some people can't, some people not willing.
They can't digest that.
Listen, and typically, I would imagine the people that you have to talk to like that typically not going with you like that. You just wasted all that. You just scared. But people, I just want to say I appreciate that style of leadership for me. And so I love that about you. Carlton, how about you, man? Like, man, like what is that? What did that boogeyman look like to you? And we want the one, bring the Carlton out with the Chuck Taylors.
Man,
the Captains and Chucks, you know what I mean?
You know, so I come from, like, I'm the silent killer because I'm like a strategist, man. And so I know I'm very formal, as you could tell, and that's just one of the ways that, like, I was just developed, like, through my father and everybody. Approach everything, be smart, be intentional, right? And so the boogeyman, like Wale says, didn't exist, but I was a strategist. I wasn't gonna openly fight you, but let me understand the system and let me find out what my lane is. And so if you try and get in the way and try and prevent me, then I'm gonna use my resources. I'm gonna tap into the people that have the power, and I'm gonna make sure that I could get to where I need to be. And so I was intentional about building bridges to overcome those waters and those valleys where people were trying to hinder me from progressing. And so that was talks about the community that I had to foster, and help establishing a healthy community, having the right people around you. Like Wale, man, I've been rolling from Wale. I'm gonna tell you, Wale, if I could describe Wale, back in the day, I grew up in the Pac era, right? All Eyes on Me, like one of the greatest CDs that ever came out, right? But when Pac went to Vegas in the Mike Tyson fight, they always show an image of Pac walking through the MGM with like an entourage behind him.
Right.
And so Wale, from day one, when I met him at college, he was walking through the stadium like Pac was in the MGM with an entourage. He's the only man I know that showed up to college with an entourage, bro. And I'm like, who is this brother, man? I gotta link up with him because he got the juice, man. You know what I'm saying? I need to know who he is and I need to link up with him. And so, like, in my life, I found critical people that I could link up with to foster and build community. And so even if I didn't want to join up with the boogeyman, I had hitters that was going to stand in proxy for me. And so a lot of times when the smoke was coming my way, I was the strategist. Wale would allow me to be me, and then he would be my hitter and make sure that they couldn't get to me. And that was what helped me to overcome and like work around some of those challenges, like having key people to stand beside me. And we worked together because we had a common interest to push forward. And that helped me. My brother, another hitter, big hitter. Like my big brother, he worked with us at the department. He wouldn't let nobody bring no smoke my way. My brother, you talk about Wale going at him. Man, my brother go head on, full speed. Like, what? You trying to mess with my brother? And so I had the right people around me that were hitters and that were protecting me and allowed me to be in my reserve space and do what I had to do from a strategic level, if that answers your question.
Yeah, well, kind of, yes, but I'm talking about more like when it came time to you getting ready to leave the job, and we're pushing up on 90 minutes, so we're going to have to wrap it up. But when it came time to you leaving the job, the boogeyman of all the what ifs, how did you address that boogeyman that was on the other side of the fear of you going where you knew that when you came to that point, you had to leave and this is it, last day? How did you deal with the boogeyman that was telling you to stay? And then we're gonna wrap it up and talk about real quick about the book, y'all's book.
I got you. So the boogeyman did not exist because I had hope. Like, so I had a support system. My wife was on board. She said, hey, if that's what you got to do, let's go ahead and do it. Like, there was no questions about, what are we going to do? How are we going to make it? Like, strategically, I'd always been taught to, like, prepare myself like a safety net. So as I mentioned before, I had a business dealing in real estate investments. And so I was able to walk away from the career because I had planned for walking away way before I had to walk away. So I was intentional and I created space to give me room to survive. And so even though the life that I knew was going to be shut down, I was confident in myself that it wasn't that environment that made me successful, because any space that I occupied, I was able to experience success. And so it wasn't the fire department, it wasn't that career, it wasn't that position or that title that made me successful, but it was me and everything that I had within me. And so when I looked in the mirror and saw who I was and increased in my self-awareness, then I was motivated to say, you know what, I could do this. It's going to be hard. It's not going to be the same. But I know one thing, I'm going to show up the same way I show up every time in every space.
Wow.
And so that helped me.
Man, I love that a lot, man. I love that. It sounds like, Wale, you like, hey, man, I just had enough. It's over with, man. And like, whatever. You had a business too. Yeah. But like, man, it's whatever. I ain't scared.
Whatever.
We just do it. I'm going to do it like I always do it. And then Carlton, you like, I'm still going to leave, but I've set myself up. I plan to be able to do that. And I'd love to, I hope that we can get y'all back to really dive more into that personal side, because I think that that's super important. But in the meantime, Wale, can you give us a little bit of what's coming up? I posted the cover.
Yeah. This is the legacy program, our workbook. We actually do workshops. We just actually finished one with Oakland Fire Department. And basically what this is, it's a journey of self-awareness and wellness. In life, you don't get what what you work hard for. You don't get what you deserve. You get what you focus on. So we're helping individuals to focus on wellness. And if you're focusing on wellness, you have the energy to pursue whatever your said desired outcome is. And I don't know how else to talk because now I'm talking academic, but I'm trying to talk tell you as fast as possible. Like if you want to get somewhere, if you want to get something, I don't care what it is. And every time we're talking about a desired outcome, it's not just material, it's not just spiritual. If you want to get there, you have to have the energy to get there. The energy is rooted in wellness. If you're not well, you're not going to run at a sustainable pace. Some shit's going to happen. You're not going to have resiliency, so you can't get through it. If you have no focus, you're just going to be existing for 30 years in the career, 30 years in the wilderness, right? And that's not bad. But if that's not your desired outcome, you probably should check this book out. And also, what this book ensures is that that you don't that wellness will be your priority, and that you won't sacrifice your wellness to obtain anything. Everything in your life should be a tool for your personal wellness. Everything, the career, the relationships, the car you drive, everything should make you feel good, and it should be good to you. And if it's not, then it's making you unwell. And if it's making you unwell, then at some point it's gonna be unsustainable. And if it's unsustainable, you're not gonna reach your said desired outcome. So that's what this book is. And and to like quote, I don't know if it's Shakespeare or somebody, but to be or not to be, that is the question. That's all it is, man. This is rooted in self-awareness, which is authenticity. We're not trying to create clones. This is not a book for you to come in here and learn how to be something. This is to help you be true to you so you can do you, right? And be well the whole time. So it's a transformative book, man. It's a collection of all the lessons that we've learned. It's academic, but it's super practical. It's super guided. It's not esoteric. It's super practical. And I think you guys will truly enjoy it. And I would love to come back too, and just to talk about the book in a little more detail. Not to buy it, but I think it's some great conversation, some dope conversation starters, right? So some of the chapters in the book start talking about them. Brothers might be crying. Brothers might be. It hits. So yeah.
If somebody does want to buy it, where can they get it at?
They can get the website, Leadership and Wellness Partners, and we're dropping it on Amazon April 1st. So and we'll drop it in the chat. Leadership and Wellness Partners, is our website.com. And like I said, I appreciate y'all brothers creating this space. I think this is a space that we have to have more often. And I want to say that wellness is not like some soft shit, right? Like it's not like mental well, brother, you good? Like, cause y'all didn't ask me, but I wasn't good. I had a hell of a day today, but shit, I'm gonna be good because I got to get it off a little bit, talk and be around some brothers and positive energy. But I want to let brothers know, because sometimes it's hard for masculine men to be in spaces talking how we don't really talk. I talk like this, so don't come in here kumbayaing with me, because that's not how I talk, right? Like, talk to me how you talk, say how you say it. So I just want to let you guys know that, I thank you for this space, because I believe in mental fitness before I believe in mental health. Like, if I'm mentally fit, then I could be resilient and I won't have oh shit moments. I can continue to work on my wellness every single day so I could be the best version of me. But also, it's tough work. It's being brave and courageous. And it's not nobody just giving you hugs, but sometimes it's giving you a nudge. And like Brother Mike, when you put order in the court, man, Carlton, I need you. Hey, I want to take you to another level. Let's go here with it. And I'm like, man, oh, you know what? Yeah, we working out. Okay, fix your form. Yeah, we're in the gym, right? So I really love that, and that's making sure that we good, because you're not allowing me to not be. You're giving me license to be the most authentic version of myself. Otherwise, I have to tread lightly. Where we from? We men. I can't come in here just feet on your desk, taking over your podcast, talking to you crazy. Like, hold on, homie, where your manners at? But if you like, brother, talk how you talk. You're like, okay, you really want, okay, we talking then. So I appreciate just that space. It's very unique, especially as Black professionals. We don't get to emote like this. So I just want to say that one more time. I really appreciate this space.
Amen. Amen. Carlton, I know I sweated you there for a bit, but I I appreciate your willingness to stay with it, right? Because I think you got to a place that Jason and I, we've got a sense of what we want our guests to share with our audience. And you got a chance to share both sides of that, right? You got to share hey, I could be that esoteric master's in public administration dude that can lay down, here's the order of stuff. But I can also talk about those days when things weren't going well, and those weren't days to roll up on me. So I appreciate that, because we got an audience that's full of all that as well, right? We had a pastor on last week that talks from the pulpit about the fact that, yo, you can't just talk to me any kind of way, because that's not how I'm from. And so many of us are not from that space, right? And so we do ourselves a disservice if we try to act like we are, that we left our home and upbringing to present this image to the world, because the A starts with be authentic, right? And I appreciate your willingness to be authentic in that moment. And so we're definitely going to have you guys back on, because we got a lot more to talk about, including the lessons that the workbook have to share with people. But Carlton, I'll give you some final words, and then I'm going to turn it over to my brother Jason to lead us out in prayer.
Man, that's phenomenal. I appreciate that, Mike. One thing I say is, like, I like to immerse myself in anything, right? And so when I left work, I'm someone that has to stay engaged. So I began to pursue a doctorate in industrial and organizational psychology, and my emphasis was on occupational stress. And so I've been studying occupational stress. And so recently I just pulled some numbers, like 77% of the US population experiences occupational stress. They've reported that within the last month. For first responders, it says 1 out of 3 will develop post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of what they're exposed to on the job. One of the reasons why we jumped in this space is because we know that the need is real. And that's just, I talked about the general population, I talked about our working population. Like, our heart is to really get the message to everyone and create the space of awareness, what hasn't existed. And so that's what y'all are doing. And so that's why I say this was intentional, this was divine. I appreciate you for letting me go on and talk, man. I love talking, as y'all can see, man. I get rolling and then I keep going, man. But I'm invested in it, man, and I love it. And that's me. And I know I sound real professional, bro. Y'all gonna see as it goes on. Like, that's just how I talk, man, because I'm just geared to it. People always say that, man, but like, it's not like I'm trying to do it, but that's just the reality of me and what I do. But I keep it 100 too, like, to relate to my folks. But I love the space. I love the opportunity. And more importantly, you gave me an opportunity to grow tonight. And I hope the information that we shared create the space for someone else to grow. And that's our goal. And so everybody that showed up, man, we appreciate you. Everybody that showed up, man, keep coming back. This is a phenomenal space. And it's definitely making an impact. And I just pray, like, I want to add on to the prayer, Brother Jay, that, like, man, the Lord continues to bless y'all for being vessels, to be able to be used, to be able to be directed, and also to be able to be leaders in this space of wellness, man. And so I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. Thank you both for being with us today. One of the things that we want to continue to do, and you guys are part of that legacy of what we were creating with this show, right? We're recording images that can be viewed and reviewed later by potentially generations, right? Who knows how long these images and these voices will last. It's a space where people get to share what they're passionate about. And what both of you shared tonight is having careers that lots of people work hard to get into, and not getting locked into the promise of those when those careers no longer fit what works in your life, and being courageous enough to leave those careers to follow the things that your heart is passionate about. So you guys are both great examples for that. I know there are going to be people that draw from that story and those images that you've shared with them tonight about how to get there. We know this message is reaching people far beyond what we ever thought or hoped, because we serve an awesome God that's putting the word out to all sorts of people. And so I thank you guys for being on the show tonight. We're going to have you guys back on later this year. Jason, why don't you go ahead and thank the people we need to thank, and then lead us out in prayer.
Yeah. Well, first I want to say thank you to Wale and Carlton. Super grateful, man. Y'all see me out. I'm getting my rock on because I'm in my bag right now. You know what I mean, y'all? I'm telling you, man, when we got to that real talk space, and that it does something, and this is cultural. You know what I'm saying? Somebody's in the bag. I mean, so I want to say thank y'all for bringing us back, and for people that there's no apology, Carlton. Not that you're apologizing, but this is a real talk space. We don't, you know what I mean? So this is so what y'all bring today, I thought was amazing. The juxtaposition between the two of you, how you both move. And I think it's an amazing for a team to be built the way that y'all are built. You're so polar opposite in the way that you go about things, but your focus is the same. And I'm super grateful for that. This is what amazing teams look like. I'm going to commit publicly right now. I promise to read your book. And when I'm done reading the book, we're going to have you back so we can talk about it. You know what I mean? So I commit for me and Mike. We both going to read y'all's book, and then we're going to bring you back. So it'll be probably sooner than later, because we're going to want to talk about some of that stuff. So thank you. I want to say thank you to DeAndre, who's also a MPA. One of the brothers, if you will look at 2 podcasts ago, they were on our 8th episode, I believe, our 8th episode. You'll see them. Brian Ford, thank you. KDV, that's my homegirl, Kim from the workspace. Thank you. Nate Klein's a therapist. Thank you for being here, Nate. We appreciate y'all. Thank you for everything. Thanks for everybody that tuned in, that didn't comment. We saw you. Thank you for everybody on YouTube, Facebook, and those of you who are going to watch later on. We appreciate y'all taking this time to be with us. And so one of the things that Mike said in creating this is we wanted to have it a space where we prayed afterwards, be intentional about praying. And so I always say I'm a Christian. So when I pray, I talk to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So if it's not what you do, feel free to those of you who are watching, if it's not what you're into, you can turn off the podcast at this point. But we want to honor that and honor God for giving us this space. And so God, I just want to say thank you. Thanks for another day. It's just good to be alive. It's good to be alive. As we're thinking and we're talking to 2 firefighters, former firefighters that have 15 and 17 years of experience, and all the things that they had to see in their careers that left a mark. Carlton talked about a call 15 years that he held that was finally the straw that broke the camel's back. It was the first straw in 15 years. And so I pray for that, all of those stories and all of that trauma that they experienced in their field, that they would use that to continue to create spaces to help other people to leave legacies, allow their courage, let them to, as Wale was saying in Carlton, that their courage would go before them, and people would see that, so that they would have the courage to leave the legacy that they were designed to leave. Everyone's going to leave a legacy, but I just pray that people would be able to leave the legacy that they could sign and say that this is what I was supposed to be doing. And so I pray for their work, for their ministry. I pray for provision. I pray for doors to open, opportunities to present themselves. I pray that they be on a national stage as a result of things that we see in the world today. I pray that they would be part of the agents of change for those things to happen. Thank you for this space that you've created for us and the ways that it's working in people's lives in ways that we can't see. But we're doing it by faith. And so we know that things are happening. We don't have to see it, because faith is the substance of things hoped for and evidence of things that are unseen. And so, again, pray for success for Brother Wale and Brother Carlton. Thank you for Mike and his courage as he leads himself as he leads in his profession. Thank you for what you've allowed me to do, and for everybody that's going to be able to see this for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen.
Man.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be here again next week, 7 o'clock, same bat time, same bat channel. Look for us. We're happy that y'all stuck with us. Thank you for everything. We appreciate y'all, and we'll see y'all next week on Brothers. Y'all good.